The darkness of space stretched endlessly before the Draconian 7th Expeditionary Fleet. 147 warships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under distant starlight. At the command deck of the flagship Eternal Dominion, Fleet Commander Vecthar studied the tactical display with satisfaction. The third planet of this unremarkable yellow star would be theirs within days. Intelligence had been clear. The inhabitants called themselves humans. They broadcast primitive radio waves and had barely reached their own moon. The Draconian hegemony had conquered 17 star systems, subjugating dozens of species. This would be the easiest victory yet. Far from the approaching armada, Captain Hyenwu stood in the observation deck of Luna Station. The facility was buried deep beneath the moon's surface, invisible to any scanner that might pass overhead. Through reinforced windows, he watched Earth rotating slowly in the black void. His home. The blue and white marble that every member of the Defense Force had sworn to protect. Captain, the fleet has entered the Kuiper Belt. Lieutenant Tae-young reported from the sensor station. His voice was steady, but Hyenwu could hear the tension underneath. They had trained for this moment for years. Now it was real. Hyenwu moved to the command console. Around him, dozens of officers monitored screens showing the alien fleet's progress. The Draconians moved confidently, their formation tight and disciplined. They had no idea they were sailing into a trap that had taken 3 decades to prepare. Contact Admiral G1 Hyenwu ordered. Tell her the targets are in position. Across the solar system, hidden bases came alive. Admiral G1 sat in the war room buried beneath the Colorado mountains. The chamber was filled with representatives from every nation on Earth. Disagreements and conflicts had divided humanity for centuries. But the threat from the stars had unified them in ways nothing else could. All stations report ready, her aide announced. Gigwan looked at the faces around her. Some showed fear. Others showed determination. She thought of her daughter studying engineering in Seoul, unaware that alien warships were hours away from ending everything she knew. The Admiral's jaw tightened. Activate. The network, she commanded. The order traveled. At light speed, 2,000s of relay stations scattered throughout the Kuiper Belt. What the Draconians had dismissed as asteroids and space debris were actually something far more dangerous. 40,000 devices, each no larger than a shipping container, had been placed over 30 years. They had drifted in the cold darkness, waiting. Vecthar noticed the sensor readings first. Navigation, are we detecting any anomalies? Negative, Commander. All systems normal. The asteroid field poses no threat to our shields. Maintain course. Prepare the landing forces. I want the first wave ready to deploy the moment we achieve orbit. His weapons officer nodded enthusiastically. The younger Draconians were eager for glory. They had heard stories of conquest from their elders. Now, they would write their own tales of victory. On Luna Station, Hyenwu watched the countdown timer. 10 seconds. 9-8. His hands gripped the edge of the console. Beside him, Tae-young had stopped breathing. The devices activated simultaneously across billions of kilometers of space. Each one contained technology that humanity's greatest minds had spent decades developing. They had studied theoretical physics that other species had dismissed as impossible. They had pushed the boundaries of what matter and energy could do. And they had created something terrifying. Miniature singularities formed in the fabric of space itself. Each one existed for less than a microsecond, but that was enough. The gravitational forces were precisely calculated, creating cascading waves that folded reality like paper. Vecthar saw his tactical display go insane. What is happening? Report. Commander, gravitational anomalies are forming throughout the fleet. The readings are impossible. Space itself, as the transmission ended, the Eternal Dominion stretched. The mighty warship, capable of destroying planets, pulled apart like taffy. Metal screamed silently in the void. The hull compressed, then expanded, then compressed again as competing gravitational forces tore at every atom. In less than a second, the flagship and its crew of 3,000 ceased to exist in any recognizable form. Across the fleet, the same fate befell every ship. The smaller destroyers vanished first, crushed into points of infinite density. The larger cruisers lasted microseconds longer, their enhanced shields buying them nothing. The Draconian warriors, who had terrorized the galaxy, didn't even have time to scream, and then it was over. The singularities collapsed as quickly as they had formed. Space returned to its normal configuration. The Kuiper Belt looked exactly as it had before, an empty field of ice and rock drifting in the eternal night. At Luna Station, the sensor screens showed nothing. No ships, no debris, no energy signatures. Just empty space where 147 warships had been moments before. Mother of God, Taeyong whispered. Hyenwu felt his legs weaken. He had known what the weapons would do. He had seen the simulations, but witnessing it in reality was different. More than 70,000 beings had just died, erased from existence so completely that not even their atoms remained in recognizable form. All stations. Report status, he managed to say. The responses came in one by one. Every monitoring station confirmed the same thing. The Draconian fleet was gone. The devices had worked perfectly. The microscopic debris scattered across millions of kilometers was all that remained. Fragments so small they would be dismissed as cosmic dust. Admiral? G1 received the confirmation at the war room. She looked at the faces around her. Some people were cheering. Others sat in stunned silence. She felt no joy, only grim satisfaction. Earth had survived its first test, but she knew this was only the beginning. Implement protocol silence, she ordered. Lock down all communications. As far as the galaxy is concerned, nothing happened here. That fleet simply vanished. In orbit around the Draconian homeworld 17 light-years away, High Command waited for updates from the 7th Fleet. They expected reports of easy victory, of a primitive world subjugated, of resources ready for extraction. Instead, they received nothing. Days passed. Then weeks. The scheduled communications never came. The tracking beacons went silent. It was as if the fleet had sailed off the edge of the universe itself. Back on Earth, life continued. People went to work, children went to school, and the news spoke of weather and politics. Deep beneath the surface, in hidden bunkers and secret facilities, humanity's defenders remained vigilant. The Kuiper Belt was still armed. The devices were still active. Hyenwu stood again at the observation window, looking at Earth. Somewhere out there, the galaxy would eventually learn what had happened. Questions would be asked. Investigations would be launched. And humanity would have to face the consequences of what they had done. But they were alive. They were free. And they had sent a message that would echo across the stars, even if that message was carried only by silence. 6 months had passed since the Draconian 7th Fleet vanished without a trace. The Galactic Council Chamber orbited a neutral star system, a massive station where hundreds of species gathered to settle disputes and forge alliances. Today, the chamber was filled with tension thick enough to cut with a blade. Counselor Bora sat in Earth's designated seat, her hands folded calmly on the desk before her. She was humanity's first representative to the Council, a former ambassador who had spent 20 years preparing for this role. Around her, representatives from across the galaxy argued in dozens of languages, their words translated in real time by the station's computers. This cannot stand. The Draconian representative slammed a scaled fist on his podium. 147 ships do not simply disappear. 7 systems have lost contact with the fleet. We demand answers. Other species murmured in agreement. The Valsharan delegate, a floating jellyfish-like being, pulsed with concern. The disappearance is unprecedented in our records. Space does not simply swallow vessels of that magnitude. Perhaps they encountered a natural phenomenon, suggested the Quellan representative, a species known for their scientific approach to problems. A rogue black hole or spatial anomaly could explain the loss. In the Sol system, the Draconian spat the words. That backwater has been surveyed multiple times. There are no such anomalies. The humans have done something. All eyes turned to Bora. She remained calm, her expression neutral. Earth had no conflict with the Draconian hegemony. We are a peaceful world, barely capable of interplanetary travel. How could we possibly destroy a fleet of that size? Then you will not object to an investigation, the council speaker declared. The ancient being, whose species had founded the council millennia ago, looked at Bora with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. The Quellan Union will lead a neutral inquiry. All parties will cooperate fully. Bora inclined her head. Earth welcomes any investigation. We have nothing to hide. The words were a careful lie, but her face showed nothing. She had been a diplomat long enough to know that truth was often less important than perception. 3 weeks later, the Quellan research vessel Truthseeker entered the Sol system. The ship was massive, equipped with the most advanced sensors in the galaxy. Its crew consisted of scientists from a dozen species, all committed to finding the truth. Commander Yuna, of Earth's diplomatic corps, stood in the docking bay as the shuttle arrived. She wore the formal uniform of the Defense Force, dark blue with silver insignia. Behind her stood a team of human scientists and military observers. The Quellan lead investigator emerged first. Melkwan was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes adapted to low light. His species valued logic above all else, which made them ideal for investigations. Commander Yuna, he greeted her in perfect English. Thank you for your cooperation. We want the truth as much as you do, Yuna replied smoothly. Our world has been under suspicion for months. An investigation will clear our name. The investigation began immediately. The Quellan team deployed thousands of probes throughout the solar system, scanning for any trace of the missing fleet. They analyzed radio transmissions, gravitational readings, and spatial distortions. Days turned into weeks. Engineer Deng Haiyan worked alongside the alien scientists. He had been assigned to the investigation team with specific instructions. Be helpful. Answer questions honestly, but reveal nothing classified. It was a difficult balance. Your asteroid belt is remarkably active, noted one of the Quellan scientists, a junior researcher named Telvin. Many objects have unusual trajectories. We've been mining asteroids for resources, Deng Haiyan explained. This was true. Human mining operations had been active for decades, providing convenient cover for other activities. The gravitational perturbations are normal for industrial activity. The investigation moved to the Kuiper Belt, where the Draconian fleet had last been tracked. The research vessel moved slowly through the region, scanning every cubic meter of space. Melkwan grew increasingly frustrated as the days passed. There is nothing here, he told Yuna during a briefing. No wreckage, no bodies, no energy signatures. It is as if the fleet never existed. Perhaps they left the system, Yuna suggested. Their tracking might have malfunctioned. 147 ships do not all experience the same malfunction simultaneously. Melkwan's large eyes studied her carefully. Commander, what are you hiding? Yuna met his gaze without flinching. We are hiding nothing. Earth is the victim here, not the perpetrator. Our world has been threatened with invasion based on mere suspicion. The breakthrough came by accident. A junior probe operator, a Quellan named Sertic, was conducting routine analysis of asteroid composition. Most asteroids in the Kuiper Belt were ice and rock. Nothing unusual. But his sensors detected something different. Investigator Melkwan, he called out. I have found trace elements that do not match local composition. The senior investigator rushed to the station. On the screen, chemical analysis showed minute quantities of exotic alloys. Alloys that matched Draconian hull plating. Span the search, Melkwan ordered immediately. Over the next week, the probes found more traces. Microscopic fragments scattered across billions of kilometers. Each piece was tiny, barely larger than a molecule, but the pattern was clear. Something had torn the Draconian ships apart at the atomic level and spread the debris across vast distances. Melkwan confronted Yuna in the observation deck. Earth rotated slowly below them, beautiful and serene. We found them, he said quietly. Or what remains of them. The fragments show signs of exposure to extreme gravitational forces. Forces that should not exist in nature, not at that scale, not distributed so precisely. Una said nothing for a long moment. She looked at her homeworld, thinking of the billions of people living their lives below, unaware of how close they had come to extinction. What weapon does humanity possess? Melkwan asked. His voice held no accusation, only scientific curiosity mixed with fear. We possess the will to survive, Yuna replied carefully. When faced with extinction, any species will do what is necessary. The Council must know. Yes, Yuna agreed. They must. But they must also understand why. That fleet came to conquer us, to enslave our people, to steal our resources. We defended ourselves. Melkwan turned to face her fully. You destroyed 70,000 beings without warning, without negotiation, without mercy. Do you understand what this means? How the galaxy will react? We understand perfectly. Yuna's voice was steady. Earth has revealed itself as a world that cannot be threatened, cannot be conquered, cannot be destroyed without cost. If the galaxy wishes to treat us as monsters, so be it. At least we will be monsters who are still alive. The Quellan investigator left the observation deck in silence. His report would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. A primitive world, barely a century into space travel, had developed weapons that made even the greatest empires hesitate. Donghayan found Yuna still standing at the window an hour later. Did we do the right thing? He asked. I don't know, Yuna admitted, but it was the only thing we could do. Below them, Earth continued its eternal rotation, ignorant of the storm that was coming. The investigation was over. Now the real challenge would begin. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from every major civilization packed the seats. While thousands more watched through holographic feeds across the galaxy, the Quellan investigation report had been leaked 3 days ago. Yes. And speculation had reached a fever pitch. Counselor Bora stood at the central podium alone. Admiral G1 had wanted to send a military representative, but Bora had insisted on speaking herself. Diplomacy was her weapon. And today, she would need every tool in her arsenal. The council speaker called the session to order. We have gathered to hear testimony regarding the disappearance of the Draconian 7th Fleet. Counselor Bora of Earth, you have been granted permission to address this body. The galaxy is watching. Bora felt the weight of billions of eyes upon her. She thought of her childhood in Busan, of the ocean waves crashing against the shore, of a world at peace. That peace had been built on the threat of extinction. Honorable Council, she began, her voice amplified throughout the chamber. 6 months ago, the Draconian hegemony dispatched 147 warships to the Sol system. Their stated purpose was conquest. Intelligence reports indicated they viewed Earth as a primitive world, easy to subjugate. Murmurs rippled through the audience. The Draconian representative stood. We were conducting a peaceful exploration mission. Your own military communications, intercepted by multiple neutral parties, tell a different story, Bora countered. She displayed holographic records that had been carefully declassified. Fleet Commander Vekthar's orders were clear. Subjugate the population. Strip the planet of resources. Establish a colony. The evidence was damning. Even the Draconians' allies shifted uncomfortably. Earth faced a choice, Bora continued. Submit to slavery or defend ourselves. We chose defense. How? The question came from a dozen representatives at once. How did a primitive world destroy an entire fleet? Bora nodded to the technician controlling the main display. We will show you. The chamber dimmed. Holographic footage filled the space above the council floor. The images had been recorded from multiple angles. Taken by observation satellites during the fleet's final moments, Commander Jae-hoon appeared beside Bora, his military uniform crisp and formal. He was the head of strategic defense, the man who had overseen the implementation of Earth's ultimate weapon. What you are about to witness has been classified since before most of you were born, Jae-hoon said. His voice carried the weight of authority. 35 years ago, Earth's scientists began working on a theoretical problem. How could a technologically inferior civilization defend itself against superior forces? The hologram showed the Draconian fleet entering the Kuiper Belt. The ships moved confidently, their formation perfect. We seeded our outer solar system with 40,000 devices, Jae-hoon continued. Each device contains a miniature singularity generator, technology that most species dismiss as impossible. A new figure appeared on the holographic display, Dr. Sujin. Earth's chief physicist addressed the council directly. She looked tired, her face lined with the burden of knowledge. A singularity is a point of infinite density, she explained. What you call a black hole? Creating one requires immense energy, and sustaining it requires even more. We developed a method to create microscopic singularities that exist for less than a microsecond. They form, they collapse, and space returns to normal. The hologram showed a simulation of how the devices worked. Points of impossible gravity forming throughout the fleet's position, creating cascading waves of destruction. When activated in a coordinated network, Sujin continued, these devices fold space itself. Any matter caught in the affected area experiences gravitational forces beyond comprehension. The result is instantaneous molecular disruption. The council watched in horror as the actual footage began. The Draconian ships didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist, pulled apart at the atomic level and compressed into points smaller than a grain of sand. The process took less than 3 seconds from start to finish. Silence filled the chamber when the footage ended. The empty space where a fleet had been moments before seemed to accuse them all. 70,000 beings, whispered the Velsharan delegate, gone in an instant. 70,000 invaders, Jaehoon corrected firmly. Coming to enslave 8 billion humans, we defended our home. The Draconian representative was shaking with rage. This is an act of war. This is genocide. You murdered an entire fleet without warning, without negotiation. Bora turned to face him directly. Your fleet entered our system with weapons armed and invasion forces ready. You gave no warning. You offered no negotiation. You came to destroy us, and we defended ourselves. The only difference is that we succeeded and you failed. The Council must sanction Earth immediately. The Draconian looked to the other delegates for support. Blockade their system. Strip them of technology. They are too dangerous to be left free. Several species nodded in agreement. Others looked uncertain. The balance of galactic power had shifted in the span of minutes. The Council speaker raised a hand for silence. This is a matter of grave concern. Earth has demonstrated capabilities that threaten the stability of all civilized space. We must consider what? Bora interrupted, her voice sharp. Whether a species has the right to defend itself, whether we should have submitted quietly to conquest. Earth did not start this conflict. The Draconian hegemony did. We simply finished it. You could have negotiated, suggested a delegate from the Korthon Empire. Reached out to the Council for protection. The Council is 17 light-years away, Jaehoon pointed out. By the time any help arrived, Earth would have been a smoking ruin. We had hours to respond, not years. Dr. Sujin spoke again from the hologram. We developed this technology over 3 decades. We detected the first Draconian scout ships 35 years ago. We knew conquest was coming. We prepared. While pretending to be primitive, another delegate accused. Broadcasting false signals. Hiding your capabilities. This was deception on a galactic scale. This was survival, Bora replied. We learned long ago that showing weakness invites attack. We showed exactly what we wanted potential enemies to see while building our defenses in secret. Any species in our position would have done the same. The debate raged for hours. Some species demanded Earth be punished. Others argued that Earth had acted within its rights. A few, the smaller civilizations who had suffered under Draconian expansion, quietly applauded what had happened as the sun set on the Council station. Admiral G1 watched the proceedings from Earth. Beside her, Captain Hyan-Wu stood at attention.
Ow.
Do you think they will attack us? Hyan-Wu asked. Some will try, G1 replied. But not today. Today they are afraid. They are imagining their own fleets disappearing into nothing. They are wondering what else we have hidden in our system. Fear will buy us time, and when fear fades, then we show them we are not monsters. We offer partnership instead of conquest. We share medical technology, scientific research, cultural exchange. We prove that Earth can be a friend, not just an enemy. On the Council station, Bora concluded her testimony. Earth makes no apologies for surviving. We offer no regrets for defending our home. But we do offer this. We have no desire to conquer anyone. We want only to live in peace. The weapons that destroyed the Draconian fleet will never leave our solar system. They are purely defensive. We threaten no one who does not threaten us first. She paused, letting her words sink in. But make no mistake. Any fleet that enters our system with hostile intent will meet the same fate. Earth has revealed the truth behind the destruction of the Draconian fleet. We did it. We are not sorry. And we will do it again if forced to choose between surrender and survival. The chamber erupted once more, but Bora was done speaking. She returned to her seat and waited for the galaxy to decide humanity's fate. The galaxy fractured along lines that had been stable for centuries. Within days of Earth's revelation, 3 Draconian client states declared independence. The hegemony's threats carried less weight when everyone knew an entire fleet had vanished without firing a single shot. Other species watched and calculated their own positions. Captain Minji stood on the bridge of the New Dawn, Earth's first commercial vessel designed for interstellar trade. The ship was small compared to galactic standards, but it represented something profound. Humanity was no longer hiding behind the moon. Captain, we are receiving hails from Valorian Station, her communications officer reported. They are refusing docking clearance. Minji had expected this. The station's parent civilization had close ties to the Draconian hegemony. Acknowledge their transmission. Plot a course to Kardik Station instead. We will trade with those who want to trade with us. The journey to Kardik took 3 days. When they arrived, the reception was very different. The station administrator himself came to the docking bay, accompanied by guards and officials. "Welcome to Kardik," he said, though his translator carried undertones of uncertainty. "We have heard much about Earth in recent months." "I imagine you have," Minji replied diplomatically. "We come to trade, not to conquer. Earth has medical compounds found nowhere else in the galaxy. We understand your people suffer from a degenerative disease that our medicines can help treat." The administrator's expression shifted from wariness to interest. The Kardik people had been dealing with the disease for generations. Draconian medicines were expensive and only partially effective. "What do you want in return?" "Standard goods. Raw materials, cultural data exchange, navigation charts. We are new to galactic trade. We need knowledge more than wealth." Over the following weeks, other ships from Earth ventured into galactic space. Some found welcome. Others found closed doors and hostile stares. The galaxy was learning to adjust to the idea that humanity existed, that they were powerful, and that they were not going away. On the frontier world of Kevla 4, Minji sat in a cantina that served drinks from 20 different species. The place was crowded with merchants, travelers, and those who existed in the gray spaces of galactic civilization. She was reviewing trade manifests when a young alien approached her table. He was humanoid, blue-gray skin and bright yellow eyes. His species was Reltok, she recalled from the briefing files. They were known for curiosity and scientific aptitude. "Captain Minji?" he asked nervously. "My name is Reltok. I am a student at the university here. May I speak with you?" "Of course." She gestured to the empty seat across from her. Reltok sat, his hands fidgeting with a datapad. "I have been studying the reports about your fleet defense system. The mathematics alone are extraordinary. How did Earth develop singularity technology? My professors say it should be impossible for a civilization less than 1,000 years into space travel." Minji considered her answer carefully. "Desperation breeds innovation. When you know extinction is coming, you find solutions that others never consider. We turned our isolation into an advantage. While older civilizations were conquering stars, we were studying the fundamental fabric of reality. But the energy requirements alone are enormous, yes. We used our entire solar system's resources. Every asteroid mine, every solar collector, every power plant. For 30 years, a significant portion of Earth's total energy production went into building and maintaining that defensive network." Reltik's eyes widened. "Your whole civilization focused on one goal?" When the alternative is slavery or extinction, priorities become very clear. Minji took a drink. We did not want to build weapons. We wanted to explore, to learn, to meet our neighbors peacefully. But we learned that the galaxy does not always reward peaceful intentions. Many species fear Earth now. I know. Fear is easier than trust. Minji looked around the cantina. But fear also brings respect, and respect can eventually become partnership. Back on Earth, the reaction to humanity's galactic debut was complex. In-Soul activist Hijin addressed a crowd of thousands in the city center. The protests had been growing for weeks. We have announced ourselves to the galaxy as monsters, she shouted, her voice amplified across the plaza. We destroyed 70,000 beings. We built weapons of mass destruction. We have become the thing we always feared. The crowd cheered and jeered in equal measure. Society was deeply divided. Some saw the fleet's destruction as a necessary evil. Others saw it as a moral failure that stained humanity's soul. Engineer Deng Hain watched the protest from a cafe nearby. He had returned to Earth after the investigation, resuming his civilian life. But the weight of what he knew made normal life feel strange. He had been there. He had seen the footage. He had helped build the very weapons Hijin condemned. A familiar figure sat down across from him. Dr. Sujin looked older than when he had last seen her. The woman who had designed the singularity generators carried a burden that showed in every line of her face. Do you regret it? Dong Haiyan asked quietly. Sujin watched the protesters for a long moment. Every day. I dream about those ships, about the people inside them. They had families, dreams, lives, and I erased them from existence. They came to conquer us. I know. That does not make it easier. She wrapped her hands around a cup of tea. But if faced with the same choice again, I would do it. Because those 70,000 came to enslave 8 billion, the mathematics of morality are clear, even if the emotional weight is not. Yijin would say there is always another choice. Yijin has never watched invasion fleets approach her world. Yijin's voice was gentle, but firm. She has never had to choose between violence and extinction. I hope she never has to make that choice. But I made it for her, and I will carry that burden so she does not have to. Dong Haiyan noticed the protesters carrying signs with slogans condemning the government, condemning the military, condemning the scientists. None of them knew that the chief architect of Earth's survival was sitting in a cafe watching them exercise the freedom she had preserved. What happens now? He asked. Now we prove we are not monsters. We share our medical technology. We help species suffering from diseases we can cure. We offer scientific partnerships. We show the galaxy that Earth can be a force for good, not just destruction. And if they attack us anyway. Sujin's expression hardened. Then the Kuiper Belt is still armed. The network is still active. We built it once. We can build it again if needed. Earth will never be defenseless again. In the Galactic Council chambers, debates continued. Economic sanctions against Earth were proposed, argued over, and eventually shelved. Too many species needed the medical compounds Earth offered. Too many smaller civilizations saw Earth as a potential ally against larger empires. The Draconian hegemony fumed and plotted revenge. But their military strategists advised caution. Send another fleet to Seoul and risk the same fate. The political cost was too high. Instead, they focused on rebuilding their reputation, on securing their remaining client states. On Earth, Admiral Juan prepared for the next phase. Defense had succeeded. Now came the harder task of building relationships, of turning fear into respect, respect into trust. The galaxy knew Earth's secret. Humanity stood exposed. In orbit, Captain Haiyan commanded a newly commissioned defense platform. Similar stations were being built throughout the system. Earth was reinforcing its defenses, while also reaching out in peace. Two strategies, running parallel. Do you think it will work? Lieutenant Taeyang asked him during a quiet shift. Can we really convince them we are not a threat? We are a threat, Haiyan replied honestly. But we can be a controlled threat, a deterrent rather than an aggressor. The galaxy will learn to live with us, just as nations on Earth learned to live with nuclear weapons in the old days. Die. maintaining balance through fear. By maintaining balance, through mutual respect for each other's capabilities. Hyan-Wu looked at Earth below. It is not perfect, but it is survival. And survival means we get tomorrow to try to make things better. The fallout from Earth's revelation would continue for years, perhaps decades. But humanity had achieved something profound. They had announced themselves to the galaxy not as victims or conquerors, but as a force that demanded respect. 2 years had passed since the destruction of the Draconian Seventh Fleet. The galaxy had changed in ways both subtle and profound. Trade routes had shifted. Alliances had reformed. And Earth stood at the center of a new constellation of power, Admiral Mel Wu. G1 walked through the corridors of the rebuilt Council Station. She had been invited to address the reformed Galactic Assembly, gathering that now included representatives from 40 new independent worlds. Species that had been client states of larger empires were finding their voices. Admiral Counselor Bora greeted her outside the main chamber. "Are you ready?" "I have been preparing for this moment for 30 years, Giwan replied, though I imagined the circumstances would be different. The chamber was packed. Unlike 2 years ago, when fear and hostility had dominated, today there was something else in the air. Curiosity, possibility. The galaxy had spent centuries in relative stasis. With the same empires controlling the same territories, Earth had shattered that stability. The council speaker called the session to order. "We gather today to hear a proposal from the Earth delegation. The Soul Accords, as they have been named, represent a new framework for mutual defense and cooperation. Admiral Juwon, you may proceed." Juwon stood at the central podium, her uniform bearing the insignia of both Earth's Defense Force and the new Interspecies Cooperation Initiative. Behind her, holographic displays showed the framework of what Earth proposed. "Honorable delegates," she began. 2 years ago, Earth revealed itself to the galaxy through an act of violence. We destroyed a fleet that came to conquer us. That revelation was necessary, but it was not the future we want to build. She activated the first display, showing a network of defensive positions and patrol routes. The Soul Accords propose a mutual defense framework based on deterrence rather than conquest. We share defensive technologies with our partners. We establish joint monitoring systems. We agree that an attack on one is an attack on all. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The concept was not new, but the details were revolutionary. Earth was offering to share modified versions of their defensive technology. Not the singularity generators themselves, but early warning systems, shield enhancements, and tactical coordination protocols. "We do not seek to build an empire," Guan continued. "We seek to build a coalition of equals. Species who choose independence over subjugation, worlds who want to determine their own futures."
Ow.
The Velsharan delegate spoke first. "And what does Earth gain from this arrangement?" "Allies." G1 answered simply. "Knowledge. Cultural exchange. And the security of knowing that we are not alone in a hostile galaxy. Earth cannot defend every world. But together, we can create a network that makes aggression costly for any would-be conqueror." Over the next hours, delegates asked questions and raised concerns. The Draconian representative, a new ambassador who had replaced the previous one, stood in silence. The hegemony's power had waned significantly. 3 of their former client states were in this chamber as independent voices. By the end of the session, 17 species had signed preliminary agreements. It was a beginning. Captain Hyun-Woo commanded the Indomitable, Earth's first true deep space diplomatic cruiser. The ship was larger than the New Dawn, equipped with both defensive systems and conference facilities. His mission was to visit former Draconian territories and offer partnerships. On the bridge, he reviewed intelligence reports with his first officer, Lieutenant Taeyang, who had been promoted after 2 years of exemplary service. "Our next stop is Kelver Prime," Taejong reported. "They declared independence 6 months ago, but they are struggling. The Draconians provided infrastructure support that they have lost. Then we offer engineering assistance," Hyun-Woo decided. "And medical supplies? Show them that independence does not mean isolation. The Indomitable arrived at Kelver Prime to a cautious welcome. The local government was young, formed from a coalition of resistance groups. They needed everything: power generation systems, water, purification technology, agricultural assistance. Earth provided all of it, asking for nothing in return except friendship. Within weeks, Kelver Prime became Earth's strongest ally in the sector. Word spread. Other worlds took notice. On the Draconian homeworld, Fleet Commander Grishar reviewed intelligence reports in the War Ministry. He was younger than Vecthar had been, and far more cautious. The disappearance of the 7th Fleet had taught the hegemony a painful lesson. Earth's strategy is clever, he told the Supreme Council. They are not conquering worlds. They are winning them through generosity and protection. Every world that joins their coalition becomes another barrier to our expansion. Can we defeat them militarily? The Supreme Leader asked. Jafe pulled up tactical simulations. If we commit our entire fleet to a direct assault on Sol, our models suggest a 40% chance of victory. But the cost would cripple us. We would lose hundreds of ships. And even if we won, what would remain of the hegemony? Our client states would see our weakness and revolt, and we have lost. No, we adapt. Grishar switched to a different display. We study their technology. We develop countermeasures. And most importantly, we watch and wait. Earth's coalition will not last forever. Alliances fracture. Disagreements arise. When that happens, we will be ready. Back in the Sol system, life had changed dramatically. The moon now housed a permanent population of 50,000. Mars colonies were expanding rapidly. Stations throughout the asteroid belt mined resources and manufactured goods for both. Earth and Export Dr. Su Jin stood in her laboratory. Now relocated to a facility on Luna, she was working on the next generation of defensive technology. The singularity generators had saved Earth once, but she knew they could not rely on the same weapon forever. Engineer Dong Haeon visited her regularly. He had left active service but maintained a consulting role. "What are you building now?" he asked, looking at the complex equations on her screens. "Redundancy," Sujin replied. "We cannot allow ourselves to become complacent. The galaxy knows our primary defense now. They will develop countermeasures eventually. We need to stay ahead. Will it ever end? The arms race." Sujin paused in her work. "Not in our lifetimes. Perhaps not ever. But each day we buy is a day for diplomacy to work, for friendships to form, for the galaxy to learn that Earth is a friend worth having. Do you still dream about them?" The fleet. "Every night," her voice was quiet. "But I also dream about the children growing up on Earth, on Luna, on Mars, children who will never know conquest because we chose to defend ourselves. The weight of 70,000 deaths against 8 billion lives. The mathematics are clear, even if the guilt remains." In orbit, Captain Minji returned from another trade mission. The New Dawn was now one of 50 human vessels traveling between stars. Earth's economy was booming as galactic markets opened. Cultural exchange programs brought alien students to Earth's universities and human searchers to distant worlds. She met with Admiral G1 to deliver her report. The outer sectors are stabilizing. 15 new worlds have expressed interest in the Sol Accords. The coalition is growing faster than projected. And the Draconians? Quiet. Too quiet. Midge's expression was troubled. They are planning something. I can feel it in the way their merchants behave, the questions their diplomats ask. "Let them plan," Guan said calmly. "We will be ready. We are always ready." On Earth, activist Haijin had shifted her focus. She still opposed violence, still questioned the morality of the fleet's destruction, but she had channeled her energy into something constructive. She led the Reconciliation Project, working to develop frameworks for peaceful conflict resolution that could be shared with the galactic community. "We cannot change what happened," she told a gathering of students, "but we can influence what happens next. Every species deserves the right to defend itself, but defense should be the last option, not the first." Her words resonated with many, both on Earth and beyond. The galaxy was learning that humanity was not monolithic. They were complex, capable of both devastating violence and profound compassion. Counselor Bora stood once more in the Galactic Council chamber. The Soul Accords had been officially ratified by 37 worlds. It was not a majority of galactic civilization, but it was a significant block. Enough to shift the balance of power. Earth has revealed the truth about our capabilities, she said in her closing statement. We have shown what we can destroy. Now we will show what we can build. Peace through strength. Cooperation through mutual respect. A galaxy where small worlds are not prey for larger empires. Lieutenant Taeyong, now stationed at Luna Command, looked through the observation window at Earth below. He had been there at the beginning, watching the Draconian fleet vanish. He had seen the investigation, the revelation, the fallout. Do you think we made the right choices? He asked Captain Hyanwu, who had returned to Luna for a brief leave. I think we made the only choices available to us, Hyanwu replied. We chose survival. Everything that followed came from that choice. The alliances, the technology sharing, the cultural exchange, none of it would exist if we had been conquered. And the Draconians? They will try again, eventually. But next time, they will face not just Earth, but 37 worlds, united in defense. The message we sent 2 years ago was heard clearly.